Hello and welcome to Quincy Fire Department, Fire Prevention and You. I'm Mark Crosby of Quincy Access Television. Thank you for joining us for this program and all the programs that take place here at the studios at 88 Washington Street. Joining me today to talk about smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms and a program that is available to residents throughout the city is Lieutenant Chris Murphy of the Fire Prevention Bureau here in the city. Chris, welcome.
Morning. How are you?
Great. How are you? I know
well.
we're not strangers. Of course, you have presented programs throughout the city, I think most recently to the Kennedy Center.
Yes.
And you've been on programs at Quincy Access Television before, I believe with my colleague Joe Catalano.
Yes. Yep.
So welcome back.
It's good to be here.
It's good to be here. It's good to have discussions like we are going to hear and have today. I say here because smoke alarms are in front of us on the table, as well as carbon monoxide alarms. And it's going to be a bit of a show and tell. We're going to really stress the importance of having working alarms for both.
Yes, and I'll go through each type of alarm and the different sounds that they make so people can kind of understand they're not the same alarm. You know, there's some that are combination types. There's some that are separate smoke, some separate COs, there's some that talk to you. So there's a lot of different types out there, and we'll kind of go through what's the most important. Most important thing would be to get out of the house, but when these alarms go off, what noises to recognize, how many beeps they make makes a difference.
Yeah, and that's absolutely helpful. Well, smoke alarms save lives. Very, very important. They do.
Yes. Anytime, so that's kind of number one. Anytime you hear the smoke alarm go off, everyone should just leave the house. Everyone pretty much has cell phones now, so you don't need to call 911 from inside. You can call 911 from outside the house. So just sort of basic fire safety things to start with. The alarm goes off, everyone should leave the house. The family should have a meeting place so that they can kind of account for everybody. So when the emergency responders fire department gets on scene, they can let them know if there's anybody still in the house. And it'll be easy to know if everybody meets in the same place.
Right. So it's a good idea to have done some prep work ahead of time. So
yeah, especially if you have kids, practice that. Practice leaving the house. Do that. Even if you do it, I mean, once a month would be great. But if you do it every 3 or 4 months, just so the kids get used to it and they know exactly where they're going to have to meet you once they're out of the house. Absolutely.
Fire alarms, smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms can catch you at the worst possible hour. I mean, it might be in the middle of the night, so you certainly don't, when most people are sleeping, and might be a bit hazy in the sense of what to do. So to prepare, to plan ahead is very, very important.
Yep, practice like anything else. Just like you play sports, you practice that. You know, this is, excuse me, it's important to practice because then it just becomes a habit. So.
Now, let's talk about the connection of these alarms. Are they all hardwired to residences?
No, so I don't have, of course you couldn't have a hardwired one here, but hardwired ones will be, they'll run on electricity and they'll have battery backup, so if you lose power, they'll still work. But those are mostly installed in, well, newer construction that's been going on since I think after 1975, but if your house is older than 1975, you probably don't, which is a lot of houses in the city, you probably don't have hardwired alarms unless you've done a major renovation to it.
So it is code now for new construction?
It is code now, yeah. Anything built now definitely has hardwired, interconnected, so if one goes off, they all go off in the whole house. The battery operated ones are just all individual, so if the one on the first floor goes off, the one on the second floor is not going to until that senses smoke. But that's, yeah, all the new code now, everything being built now, even since, I'm pretty sure it's since after 1975, is hardwired alarms.
So let's talk about what sets off the alarm. How do they function? In other words, there's a break in a beam?
Yes, pretty much. They have there's a lot of different types, so it's kind of hard to say, but they all have a sensor in there, whether it's a beam or something else that senses the smoke. And there's photoelectric type and there's ionization types. The ionization type senses more of a flaming fire, and the photoelectric would sense more of a smoldering type fire. So I think those work a little bit quicker to smoke, and they're less likely I think, to go off to be like nuisance alarms if they're near the kitchen and from steam from the bathroom.
I was thinking that,
yeah,
right.
So those are the kind that are recommended now, and actually that's the latest requirement is that the alarms have to be photoelectric.
And the alarms do have a lifespan.
They do. So they should be replaced every 10 years. Some might fail sooner than that, and you'll notice you get that single chirp. It'll happen like every 30 seconds. You get just one chirp. That means that you either need a new battery or the alarm might be bad. Carbon monoxide alarms, those generally they say 5 to 7 years, but newer ones are 10 years. And they all have a date on the back of them.
Yeah, why don't you,
so
if you could pick one up.
One example here, so it's sometimes they're hard to read, but there is a date right at the bottom here. This one says March 2018.
Okay, hold it there for just a second.
So that's when it was manufactured. So by 2028, this alarm will be no good.
Right.
And the ones that they sell now, they have a lot of them. They have 10-year sealed batteries, so you don't have to worry about changing batteries in them. They last for 10 years, and after 10 years, you throw the whole alarm out and buy a new one.
Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
yeah, those are. I think those are the best ones everyone should install, because then there's no question whether or not you have a good battery in it.
Right.
You don't have to remember to change your batteries, and they say like when the clocks change them every 6 months, whatever. So
right, right.
So
So
no need to remember. Just every 10 years you replace it.
and again, if you don't have that, then certainly every 6 months following the cycle of daylight savings time.
Yes, that's usually what they recommend. I did hear recently in a class that I took that they may change that because everyone seems to use digital clocks and they change automatic.
Oh.
So people don't remember that anymore.
Right,
so,
right.
I tell people just pick something that's significant to you every 6 months. So if it's maybe it's the New Year and July 4th, some sort of two dates that maybe mean something to you that you can that are about 6 months apart, and maybe kind of put that on your calendar of when to change them. But changing the clock works for you, then do it that way. But if
Right.
not, pick two other dates that are about 6 months apart that you'll remember to do it.
And as far as installation, where should they go? Where shouldn't they go?
So there's a lot of regulations around where they should be. You really can never have too many, I guess. But you should have one on every floor, both smoke and carbon monoxide. So every floor of living space in the house. They should be within 10 feet of bedrooms and at the bottom of every stairway. If you have a large stairway that has a really high ceiling, then you put one at the top of that open stairway. You want them in the basement. If your attic is a finished attic, they should be up there. If you have access to there, I'd put one up there anyways, just in case. But some attics don't have good access, so you can't really put one in there. But that's
And you don't
kind of
want
the basics.
You
yeah.
don't want one again in the kitchen.
The kitchen, you
one
get a lot of
in the
nuisance
bathroom,
alarms if they're in the
correct?
kitchens, yeah. But the photoelectric, within 20 feet of a kitchen or bathroom, then you'd use a photoelectric type.
Okay, okay. And I guess right now it's probably a good idea to have a little demonstration. There are beeps that are associated with certain ones. There is a talking alarm as well.
There is. So I'll push the button on each of these. So we'll start with this is just a basic smoke alarm. It is a photoelectric type. You can tell when you buy them, it'll be on the package. Some of them, like this one here, has a little P right on the front of it. And you know that's photoelectric.
Okay.
This one doesn't have the P on it, but it is written on the back up here. So you might have to look at them a little bit, but when you buy it, it should be on the outside of the package to tell you.
Okay.
So this alarm here, this is just a smoke alarm. Some of these others are combination alarms.
It's a good point.
So I'll play them all so that we can, the viewers can hear the different sounds. So the smoke alarms, they'll beep 3 times. Now the carbon monoxide alarms beep a little bit faster, and they beep 4 times. So a lot of people wouldn't know that, and no one really pays attention to it. But
I didn't know
hopefully,
that.
no. So if you listen to this one, give it a second.
There's the cycle
So
of
that will
3.
do 3 beeps in that cycle, and that will continue as long as there's still smoke there. And then the carbon monoxide alarm, this is just a separate carbon monoxide. You'll hear this one, this will beep 4 very rapid beeps. And we'll cycle through one more time. So that's the difference in the sounds, but if, most people aren't going to know that, but if you have separate alarms, you'll be able to see which one,
Sure.
When you hear the sound. But when you get to the combination alarms like this one, if it doesn't speak, then if it doesn't have the voice activation, then you're really not going to know which one's going off if this is sensing smoke or carbon monoxide. If you can see smoke, then obviously you would know.
Right.
But if you play this, you'll hear it'll do 3 beeps for the smoke and then 4. So because this is just testing, that's the smoke level. That's the carbon monoxide. One more time. There we go. So this one now, if that happens in your house, you don't know if that's sensing smoke or carbon monoxide, unless you happen to be in the room where the smoke is. If there's carbon monoxide, you'll never know because it's odorless and colorless.
Right. So that's problematic.
It is. So that's it's important. Like I say, if you hear the noise, either way, get out of the house because carbon monoxide is harmful and smoke will obviously harmful too. This alarm here, this is the recommended type. This one is photoelectric, and it will tell you which alarm is going off. So you'll hear after I push the button, it'll beep, but then it will say whether it senses smoke or carbon monoxide.
Testing. Warning. Evacuate. Smoke evacuate. Warning. Evacuate. Carbon monoxide evacuate. Highest carbon monoxide level was 0 ppm.
So this one even goes a step further and tells you how much carbon monoxide it had detected. So,
And this is, again, the latest version. It doesn't really matter if you have one that is a combination of smoke alarm, carbon monoxide alarm, or simply one of each.
no, it doesn't. If you have separate alarms, that's fine. If you're going to have the combination one, then the talking alarm is the one that you want, because you can identify which one of these is going off if they're separate.
Right.
But if they're not, like this one didn't tell us, but this one did. So
Yeah. So why complicate things, right?
yeah. So
Go
I'd
with
get the one that speaks.
that's more specific. Absolutely. Talk about, and I know maybe we've said this already once. We'll say it again. Really, the importance of paying attention to smoke alarms, fire alarms, making sure you change the batteries if you do have one that doesn't have a 10-year battery and does need to be changed, that you never disconnect them because you heard an alarm go off because the battery needs replacement and that's becoming annoying to you, so you disconnect it to get rid of that sound. Unfortunately, you've just lost your safety net.
Yes, and people do that all the time. I mean, we go into a lot of houses and we do see them disconnected, especially the hardwired ones. Those can have a lot of different issues if they're not the same type and they're not compatible maybe, but if they're not the same brand. And so then they have a lot of nuisance alarms and people will disconnect them. The same thing though with the batteries. Once the battery dies, people take them down so they don't hear that chirp every 30 seconds and they never put them back up. But it is dangerous. You really just, you're kind of taking a risk. And you're putting your family at risk too if you don't have them there. So it is important because if you're not notified of the fire, because once your room fills with smoke, even though you think you may know your way out or something, people get disoriented and confused, and then they may not make it out.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because that can happen very fast.
Okay.
And someone may say, "Well, I know my house. I know the right way to go, even in total darkness." But that's not the case because the smoke can actually do something to your brain.
Yeah, and people panic too, and they get confused when they panic, and then they just don't react the way they normally do. So it is important to have that early warning system.
And talk about painting over. You should never paint over
Yeah, you don't.
any
don't
of these
paint them.
alarms.
They all say on them, somewhere on the alarm, they clearly say do not paint. You don't want to get any paint inside any of the sensors or anything, so that it will damage your alarm, may not function properly.
Absolutely. Next, I really would like to talk about a program that is really about installation for folks here in the city of Quincy that the Fire Prevention Bureau of the Quincy Fire Department is really promoting.
Yes, so we were able to secure grant money from, we got some from a state grant, some from a federal grant, and we were able to purchase smoke alarms that we can install in homeowners, for homeowners, if they contact us. We'll come in and we'll inspect what they do have. If what they have is fine and it meets all these requirements and they have the right alarms in the right places, then we'll just give them the green light, they're good to go. But if they need additional alarms, or the ones they have are older than 10 years and aren't working or aren't working properly, then we'll replace them for them. We had the grant money to do that, and we also got some donations from Home Depot and Curry Hardware. And then we will have a program with the American Red Cross too, where we can get the alarms, so it doesn't cost the homeowner anything. And they can call the fire prevention number 617-376-1015, and we can schedule an appointment to come out and check their alarms and install them if they need them.
And I know we're going to reference also the state, and as I'm passing through some pages here, I have some information regarding the Massachusetts Department of Fire Safety and their
Yes.
website.
Yep. So the DFS website, they have a lot of good information on there. They have a whole list of what the type of alarms you're supposed to have, and the requirements, where they should be placed, based on when your house was built or renovated, and they have all that. So there's a lot of detail on that site that people can reference.
We should mention that we are recording this program in February, and I think a couple weeks back, about 2 weeks back, there was 30 inches of snow here in the city of Quincy.
Yep.
The concern with that is venting of appliances, venting of heating systems, and the potential for the vent to be covered, causing the poisonous gas to
Yep.
come into
Carbon
the house,
monoxide.
right? Carbon monoxide to come into the house.
Yep.
So talk about the importance of making sure that the vent always stays clear.
Yeah, so carbon dioxide will build up into the house if the vents are blocked. And carbon dioxide can also, because if you haven't had your furnace serviced or your chimney serviced, if you're burning in there, so keeping the vents clear is very important for your dryer, your heater. A lot of them, older homes probably vent up the chimney, but more recently, and I know even when mine was installed 15 years ago, the furnaces vent out the side of the house too. So they have a lot of different types now. I think older homes, most of them probably vent up the chimney, but newer installations, they'll vent out the side of the house, and
Right.
everything should be kept clear of anything that would obstruct it, really. But and then the same if we lost power at that storm too. Some people may have used generators.
I'm glad you brought that up.
That can also cause if you have them not in the proper placement, they can cause carbon dioxide to come into your house as well.
Yes,
So-
they need proper ventilation away from the house. And talk about some of the symptoms of someone that may be experiencing carbon monoxide poisoning.
Okay, so yeah, actually I have them right here. So the symptoms are common to a lot of things, but headache, nausea, dizziness, confusion, or even fainting. So if you feel those symptoms and you're concerned, obviously you call the fire department. We can come. We have meters. We can check the house with our meters, which are pretty sensitive. So, but if you have your alarm, hopefully you'll know whether that's going off. And some of these carbon monoxide alarms also have digital readouts. So if it did go off, you can see right in your home, what that reading is. And if it's, anything higher than 0, then you should call us anyways. So
Right.
we can check out why.
And I like the fact, I know I was at I mentioned this earlier, that I was at a presentation at the Kennedy Center here in the city where you were presenting to a group of seniors. And you basically stressed that if you have a question anytime, give us a call, because preparedness saves lives.
Yep. Any questions, people can call the fire prevention office, and we're happy to answer the question. If we don't have the answer, we'll look it up, get back to them. If they want us to come and just check something at their house, we can also schedule something to do that if they're concerned. Like this smoke detector program, if they just want to make sure they have them in the right places, even if they just bought new ones and put them in, we can just make sure they're in the right spots. So we have yeah, no problem coming out to anybody's house as long as if they have a concern, we'll help them out.
You want to get to them before the potential tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And because not only could there be a potential loss of life, it also puts the firefighters at high risk as well.
Well, it does. Yeah, every situation is different, but you know, it can be dangerous. You never know what to expect. You know.
Right.
So anybody that wants us to look at something, we can do that.
And let's talk about preparing to sell a home and what comes into play as far as both of these alarms.
Okay, so home sales is every home that gets sold needs to have working smoke alarms in it before the closing. So you need to have a certificate from the fire department at your closing that says that you have working smoke alarms. And they, depending on how old the house is, like I was mentioned before, depending on when there was any major renovations, that kind of thing will depend on whether you need battery operated alarms or interconnected hardwired alarms. So my recommendation is to go to the DFS website to look up where you fall under as far as which type of alarms and whether you need interconnected hardwired or just battery operated ones. But they can also call the fire prevention office and we can explain that to them.
You know, you mentioned the interconnected alarms, and that might seem to people to be problematic in the sense that they might not know where the source of the fire is, but basically you just need to get out of the house. So it is very important that
it is, and if you have an attached garage and there's a fire in the garage and you're on the second floor, you may not hear that alarm going off if they're not interconnected. So if they're interconnected and the alarm goes off in the garage, you'll hear it it'll also go off on the second floor, and you'll be alerted that much sooner. They're good. They're good to have.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying too is that a resident shouldn't play the role of a firefighter. They should basically think of safety first. Get in touch with the fire department, certainly.
Yeah, leave the house, call 911 is really the most important step to help yourself and your family.
There's I guess it's called a campaign, awareness campaign that the state has put together. We will run one of those public service announcements, but folks will be seeing these service announcements throughout our regular programming. There will be one on this particular program just to kind of show you, I believe it's the Grandma series.
Yes, I believe the PSA shows a grandchild writing a letter to her grandmother and kind of just, I think, to show the relationship that they would have and how they want to be there for their grandkids and that. So,
absolutely.
And if they don't have the alarms in the house and then they're not alerted, then I think that they're just trying to stress the fact that you want to be alerted soon to get out of the house and call for help.
Right before we show this, and I do believe we will show it in just a moment, what about folks that, I'm thinking of seniors, that might be hearing impaired?
Mm-hmm. So with our program with the Red Cross, we have access to some bed shaker alarms, and when those alarms, so when the alarm sounds, I think there's something that slides onto the mattress and it vibrates the bed. So that would alert you if you can't hear the smoke detector going off.
Very good. Technology.
I know.
All right, so let's take a look at that PSA, one in a series of public service announcements that has been developed with the state of Massachusetts.
Dear Grandma, I can't wait to see you. We can bake your special cookies, play cards, and look at all those old photos of you and Grandpa when you still had hair.
3 out of 5 fire deaths occur in homes without working smoke alarms.
I hope you like the picture I made of us.
If your smoke alarm is over 10 years old, replace it because you have a lot more memories to make.
Public awareness campaign right there. I think that public service announcement says it all.
Yeah, hopefully that will make people check their dates on their alarms and we'll either come out and help them out or they'll be able to replace them on their own.
Well, very good. Lieutenant, I want to thank you for joining me here at Quincy Access Television today. Very, very useful information, a bit, again, of show and tell, which is always helpful. and certainly welcome you to continue to utilize, and the department to continually utilize Quincy Access Television for public awareness.
Definitely, thanks for having me on. This is good, good way for us to reach the community. So
Great.
appreciate
I'm glad
it.
you think so as well, and we'll see you probably in the studio on a different topic, all regarding fire prevention.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you at home for watching. You have been watching a program of Quincy Access Television. Please continue to watch QATV for more locally produced programming.